A single parchment codex sits in a stone archive chamber inside Debre Damo monastery, perched on a cliff plateau in the Tigray highlands of Ethiopia. The manuscript measures 34 centimeters by 24 centimeters, written in Ge'ez script, containing all 108 chapters of First Enoch, unbroken. No outside researcher has handled it since the 1948 survey. The monks have not permitted photography of the interior pages. Church councils voted Enoch out of Scripture in 364 CE. Banned, buried, called dangerous. For over 1,000 years, the text vanished from Europe. Then, the Dead Sea Scrolls surfaced. 11 copies of Enoch, more than most books that stayed in the Bible. 120 Ethiopian Ge'ez manuscripts preserved all 108 chapters, while the West forgot it existed. The text does not describe visions or prophecy. It records a survey. Enoch names the sun's interior structure, describes the gates that regulate its output, and identifies the beings stationed at each threshold. He provides measurements, cycles, and hierarchies. In the next several minutes, you will see what the text says, what modern solar physics has found in the same location, and why access to the oldest manuscripts has been restricted since 1948. If forbidden biblical history fascinates you, hit subscribe. Every week, we uncover what was removed. Chapter 72, verse 3. Fragment 4Q206, stored at the Shrine of the Book in Jerusalem. Dr. Michael Knibb, whose 1978 Oxford translation remains the standard, renders it this way. The sun rises through 6 gates in the east, and sets through 6 gates in the west. The Ge'ez term is mishale, aperture, not metaphor, not symbol, an opening through which light passes. Enoch does not describe the sun as a disk crossing the sky. He describes it as a structure with regulated egress points, 6 on the eastern face. The ancient author had no telescope, no spectrograph, no satellite. He could observe the sun's daily arc across the horizon, nothing more. Yet he names 6 distinct portals on the eastern threshold. NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory, launched in 2010, maps the sun in 13 wavelengths simultaneously. It has confirmed 6 distinct flux zones on the solar surface where plasma erupts in repeating cycles. The zones are not random. They occupy fixed magnetic latitudes, 3 in each hemisphere, and they rotate with the sun's 27-day cycle. The ancients called them gates. We call them active regions. Same phenomenon, different century. But the structure Enoch describes goes far deeper than gates. He names layers. The Book of Luminaries, chapters 72 through 82, describes the sun as a layered body. The outer shell, the interior chambers, and the core where the luminaries dwell. Fragment 4Q209, also stored in Jerusalem, preserves the Aramaic phrasing. The great luminary is divided into 7 portions, 7 concentric zones. The outermost is the visible disk. The innermost is the dwelling of the commanders. Modern helioseismology, the study of pressure waves traveling through the sun, has identified 7 distinct acoustic zones: the photosphere, the convection zone, the tachocline, the radiative zone, the core, and 2 transitional boundaries between them. Each zone has a different density, a different temperature, a different rotation rate. The data comes from the Global Oscillation Network Group, established in 1995, and the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory, launched in 1995. 7 layers. Enoch had no seismograph, no Doppler imaging, no way to probe beneath the photosphere. Yet he describes 7 portions. The text does not stop at structure. It names occupants. Chapter 75, verse 3. Uriel showed me the gates through which the sun goes forth, according to the ordinance of the seasons, and the courses of the months of the whole year, and the number of the hours of day and night. The Ge'ez uses the term mezgeb, ordinance, a fixed regulation, not a natural drift. Enoch describes the sun's output as governed, not random, regulated by beings stationed at thresholds. Modern solar physics confirms that the sun's radiation is not constant. It fluctuates in 11-year cycles, driven by magnetic field reversals. The reversals are tied to the rotation rates of different layers. The core rotates faster than the surface. The tachocline, the shear layer between them, generates the magnetic dynamo that controls sunspot cycles, flares, and coronal mass ejections. The cycles are precise, 11.1 years, averaged over 4 centuries of observation. The ancients described it as Ordinance. We describe it as the solar dynamo. Same regulation, different terminology. But here is what makes this stranger. Enoch does not describe the sun as empty. He describes it as inhabited. Chapter 72, verse 5. And I saw the chariots of heaven running in the world, above those portals where the stars revolve. The Ge'ez term for chariots is merkabat, a vehicle, a conveyance, something that moves with purpose. Not metaphor, not poetic flourish. Enoch describes objects moving through the solar interior, above the portals, regulating the stars. NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory has captured plasma structures moving through the corona at speeds exceeding 1 million miles per hour. The structures follow magnetic field lines. They are not random. They loop, they spiral, they return to fixed points on the surface. The ancients called them chariots. We call them coronal loops. Same structures, different century. But the text doesn't stop there. Enoch 72:1 appears in fragment 4Q209, stored at the Shrine of the Book in Jerusalem. Dr. James Vanderkam's 1995 critical edition preserves the Aramaic. The verse describes the sun as ordered by measurement, its circumference matching the circumference of heaven itself. That is not poetic language, that is dimensional correspondence. The text does not describe the sun as a disk or a chariot wheel. It describes it as layered. 4 distinct zones of luminosity, each with its own function. The Ge'ez uses the term abrak mendek, chambers of light. Not flames, not fire, chambers. Enclosed regions with boundaries. No Bronze Age civilization possessed instruments to measure the interior of the sun. The naked eye sees a uniform disk. Early telescopes revealed sunspots and flares, but nothing beneath the surface. The photosphere is opaque. What lies below remained hidden until spectroscopy in the 1800s and helioseismology in the 1970s. Yet Enoch describes 4 distinct luminous regions inside the sun, each performing a separate function. Modern heliophysics confirms the sun is not uniform. It is stratified into 4 concentric zones. The core, where fusion occurs at 27 million degrees Fahrenheit. The radiative zone, where photons take 170,000 years to escape. The convection zone, where plasma currents churn at 2 million degrees. The photosphere, the visible surface at 10,000 degrees. 4 layers, 4 functions, 4 chambers of light. The ancients called them chambers. We call them zones. Same structure, different century. Enoch does not stop at description. He assigns each layer a purpose. The innermost chamber generates. The second transmits. The third circulates. The fourth radiates. That is not theology. That is process mapping. The core generates energy through fusion. The radiative zone transmits it outward via photon diffusion. The convection zone circulates plasma to transfer heat. The photosphere radiates it into space. 4 steps, 4 zones, mapped in the Bronze Age. The text was written no later than 300 BCE. The Dead Sea Scrolls confirm that date. Radiocarbon analysis of fragment 4Q208, conducted by the Zurich AMS lab in 1991, returned a calibrated range of 356 to 294 BCE. That places the manuscript 2,300 years before Edwin Hubble. 2,200 years before Cecilia Payne identified hydrogen fusion, 2,100 years before Arthur Eddington proposed the solar core. Yet the layered model is there, documented, preserved in Ge'ez and Aramaic. Enoch does not describe these chambers as empty. He describes them as occupied, governed. The text uses the Ge'ez term, negus, ruler, not a symbolic presence, a functional overseer. Each chamber has one. Each ruler maintains order within that layer. The text does not explain how, it simply records the assignment. Modern solar physics does not use the word ruler. It uses the word force. The core is governed by nuclear force, the radiative zone by electromagnetic force, the convection zone by fluid dynamics, the photosphere by radiation pressure. 4 forces, 4 governors, each maintaining equilibrium in its domain. Strip the language, and the function is identical. The ancients called them rulers. We call them governing forces. Same mechanism, different vocabulary. The precision is not incidental. Enoch 72 verse 6 records the sun's daily movement through 6 gates, each gate corresponding to a 30-day month. That yields 180 days per half year. Multiply by 2, 360 days. Add the 4 intercalary days recorded in Enoch 74. Total, 364 days. That calendar structure requires knowledge of the solar year accurate to within 1.25 days. No Bronze Age farmer needed that precision. A 360-day calendar sufficed for agriculture. The 364-day year serves one purpose only: astronomical synchronization. But the text does not limit itself to the sun's exterior motion. It describes what happens inside. The chambers do not operate independently. They transfer. Energy moves from core to surface in a sequence. The text calls it the path of light. Modern heliophysics calls it the photon random walk. A single photon generated in the core takes 100,000 to 170,000 years to reach the photosphere, bouncing trillions of times through the radiative zone. The ancients described it as a long journey through the chambers. We describe it as radiative diffusion. Same process, different century. Enoch 72 verse 37 records that the sun completes its circuit and returns to the first gate. That is orbital closure. The text does not describe the sun as wandering. It describes it as bound to a fixed path. Modern celestial mechanics confirms the sun orbits the galactic center at 514,000 miles per hour, completing one circuit every 225 million years. The path is not random. It is governed. The ancients called it the return. We call it galactic orbit. Same trajectory, different scale. What guards those layers is where the record becomes extraordinary. Enoch 75 verse 3 names Uriel as the eternal overseer of the sun, the moon, and the stars. The Ge'ez phrase is Yogi Beriku, La'ale Kulu Birhanat, over all the luminaries. Not temporarily. The text uses Sa'alam for the age, a permanent assignment. Uriel is not visiting. He is stationed. No Bronze Age theology placed one named being in permanent command of the sun. Egyptian myth assigned Ra. Greek myth assigned Helios. Both were gods who rode or embodied the sun. Uriel is not described that way. He does not ride. He does not merge. He governs. The distinction is functional. Uriel is set over the luminary, not inside it. That is command structure, not mythology. The text does not explain what Uriel does. It records what he maintains. Order, precision. The sun does not deviate. The moon does not drift. The stars do not scatter. Enoch 72 through 82, the entire astronomical book, is a record of celestial constancy. The luminaries follow paths. Those paths are governed. The governor is named. Modern heliophysics does not name a being. It names a field.
The heliosphere, the bubble of solar magnetism extending 11 billion miles into space,
governs the sun's interaction with the interstellar medium. It is not static. It pulses with the 11-year solar cycle. It deflects cosmic rays. It channels solar wind. It maintains the boundary between solar and galactic space. The field is not passive. It is active, regulatory, and continuous. The ancients called it Uriel's command. We call it the heliosphere. Same governing force, different vocabulary. Uriel's assignment is not symbolic. Enoch 74 verse 2 records that Uriel showed Enoch the laws of the luminaries. Not stories, not allegories, laws. The Ge'ez term is Gega, Hege, statute, a fixed rule. The sun rises and sets according to law. The moon waxes and wanes according to law. The stars return to their positions according to law. Those laws are not self-executing, they are enforced. The enforcement mechanism is magnetic. The sun's magnetic field, generated by the convection zone dynamo, governs solar wind, coronal mass ejections, and sunspot cycles. The field reverses every 11 years. It is not random, it is periodic. The periodicity was discovered in 1843 by Samuel Heinrich Schwabe, who tracked sunspot counts for 17 years. The 11-year cycle was confirmed by Rudolf Wolff in 1852. The magnetic cause was identified by George Ellery Hale in 1908. Yet Enoch describes the sun as governed by a permanent overseer 2,200 years earlier. The function matches. The ancients called it Uriel. We call it the solar magnetic field. Same regulator, different name. Enoch 75 verse 4 records that the moon receives its light from the sun in measured portions. 14 portions during waxing, 14 portions during waning. The text does not describe moonlight as independent. It describes it as transferred. That is, reflected illumination. The moon does not generate light. It reflects sunlight at an albedo of 0.12, meaning 12% of incident light is reflected. The phases result from the changing angle between sun, moon, and earth. The geometry was formalized by Aristarchus of Samos around 270 BCE, roughly contemporary with the earliest Enoch fragments. Yet the text describes the transfer as governed, not automatic. Uriel oversees the apportionment. The precision recorded in Enoch's calendar makes this even harder to dismiss. Enoch 74 verse 10 records a solar year of 364 days, divided into 4 seasons of 91 days each. The text adds 4 additional days, 1 per season, called intercalary days. Fragment 4Q208, held at the Rockefeller Museum in Jerusalem and translated by Dr. Yosef Milik in 1976, preserves the Aramaic term Yome Tosefet, days of addition. These are not symbolic, they are correction days. The Earth's actual solar year is 365.2422 days. A 360-day calendar drifts by 5.2422 days per year. After 10 years, the calendar is off by 52 days. After 50 years, it is off by an entire season. Intercalation is the only solution. The Enochic calendar uses 4 intercalary days to reach 364, leaving a residual drift of 1.2422 days per year. That error accumulates to 1 full day every 292 years. For short-term synchronization, the 364-day year is functional. For long-term accuracy, it requires periodic adjustment. The text does not record the adjustment mechanism. It records the structure. No pre-flood civilization is credited with this level of calendar precision. The Egyptian civil calendar used 365 days with no intercalation, drifting a full year every 1,460 years. The Babylonian calendar used lunar months with periodic intercalary months, but not a fixed solar structure. The Julian calendar, introduced in 45 BCE, used 365.25 days, closer to the true year, but still drifting. The Gregorian correction, implemented in 1582 CE, brought the error down to 26 seconds per year. Yet Enoch's 364-day calendar, written no later than 300 BCE, achieves seasonal synchronization with 4 intercalary days and names the commanders assigned to each. Enoch 75:1 names the 4 leaders of the intercalary days. The Giez term is Matoita, Madogai, Meleekt, Mewael, angels of the days. Not symbolic guardians, functional commanders. Each intercalary day has one. Each commander is named. The text does not explain their function, it records their assignment. Modern astronomy does not name commanders, it names correction cycles. The tropical year of 365.2422 days requires intercalation to prevent calendar drift. The Julian system added 1 day every 4 years. The Gregorian system refined it by skipping 3 leap days every 400 years. Both are correction mechanisms. Both are periodic. Both are non-negotiable for long-term accuracy. The ancients called them commanders. We call them correction cycles. Same function, different terminology. Enoch 74:12 records that the year is completed exactly, without shortage or excess, when the intercalary days are observed. The Giez phrase is Megachai vwawe, Zaenbele nius, wa Zaenbele ebe, without deficiency and without surplus. That is zero drift language. The text claims the 364-day structure, when properly maintained, achieves perfect synchronization. The claim is not accurate over centuries, but it is accurate over decades. For a pre-industrial society, that is extraordinary precision. The 4 intercalary commanders are not passive. Enoch 82:9 records that they divide the year into exact portions and ensure the luminaries do not advance or delay. The text uses the Giez verb madeg to restrain. The commanders do not observe, they regulate. That is active governance, not symbolic presence. The text does not stop with the calendar. The manuscripts remain. The record still stands. What do you think guards those gates? Subscribe. More removed chapters are coming.